everybody, Tony here again. I haven't done one of these in a while, but I'm doing another one of my random interviews. Yay! And one of the very few ones I have actually done with video. Um, my next interviewee is someone that is a very dear friend of mine, and in my opinion, got out of the country just in time.
Pretty much.
um, you might know her better as Dee Amanda Hagen's better half. Is the Omega Geek
Oh my
unmasked and
God.
everything.
No one asked you, Logan.
Amanda, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. It's like probably like 8:30 where you're at while we're doing this. It's like
Yeah,
3
it's
for
fine.
me.
I've had dinner. I'm fed and watered. There's ice cream in the freezer, so.
Yeah. So, I guess first question, where did the name the Omega Geek come from exactly?
That's a really good question. I don't think I never talked about it really. Basically, way back in the day when I got into the reviewerverse, I had just moved up to Maryland. I'd been down in DC for about a year and a half, and it was right after the crash, and I ended up within a surprisingly toxic geek environment. And I was felt like really lucky to get out of it. And so I guess that idea of just like like the Omega Wolf, like the one that kind of like everyone shits on.
Hmm.
And so I was like, I will own the night. I will own this, and it just went on from there.
Okay. Now, for those that are not familiar with your work, so just give us a brief synopsis as to who you are and exactly what it is you do on the interwebs.
Well, myself and my wife, Dee Amanda, we have a podcast called Lesbian Talk that's just hit its 126th episode, which I'm probably gonna post tonight after I get done with this.
Congratulations.
I do a lot in children's media. Like I had a series called What Went Right. It was examining educational stuff from the 80s, but that became pretty problematic to do, what with a lot of the content ID stuff.
Hmm.
So I had to abandon that. But I'm on Patreon now, putting my degree to actual work, and I have a show called Psych Media, which actually examines psychology in media. And so that's pretty cool because people can be like, well, "What are you like? You a psychologist?" And I'll be like, "Yes, I am actually."
Yeah. Now this is something that I've been wanting to ask you, just as not only as a internet personality, but also as your friend, because I don't think I've ever asked you this in person. How did you and Diamanda actually meet and become wife and wife? I don't know if
Romantically.
yeah, I don't know what the correct term for that is, but
Become wise.
married, yes, married,
Ah.
yeah.
Well, it was actually, it's all Mash's fault
Oh, okay.
from Radio Dead Air because I've been a listener of Radio Dead Air for a long time, like back when it was just audio only. And then when I moved to Maryland, I'd actually forgot that he was doing it, and I was on IRC, and he popped into the room at like he always did, every Monday say, "Hey, I'm over here doing RDA," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, sure." I haven't listened in what like a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, sure, that'll be great. But now it was a streaming show. I'm like, oh, great, it's video too. This is fantastic. And a few months later, it was July of 2010, he played one of Hagen's reviews. And this just says a lot about both of us, I guess, because it was Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS. So that was
Oh, I love that one.
that was the first of her ones that I saw. Like, wow, that was really crazy. And then the next week, he played Rat's Night of Terror.
Hmm.
And so, because he would, just play like did a lot of Derek the Barge early stuff. And I remember saying in one of the rooms that I was in, I was like, wow, like this girl's really, really funny. And Derek the Bard said, oh yeah, that's Diamanda Hagen. I did a collaboration with her just recently. She's really nice in person. And so
I
I
can
was like,
attest to this. Yes.
so like she was still on geekfighters.net back then.
Hmm.
And so I watched all of her stuff, and she'd always joke about being like lesbian. I was like, but is she actually, or is the character? And then I was worried because I think I don't know if I've actually ever told Nicola this, but Nicola, well, Nicola, but my
Yeah.
sister-in-law, Teddy's wife, she appeared as the avatar of decent humor. And I'm like, oh no, that's probably her girlfriend, I guess. Oh no. But then we didn't get to talking, but I went to the Renaissance Fair with my best friend. I spent all day debating if I should, be like, "Hi, I exist across the world, and you're cute." So I had several shots of rum, and then I went on YouTube and I commented on her channel and I was like, "Oh, I think you're really smart and funny. You should review this movie. It's really bad." She replied and she's like, "Oh, I've never heard of that. I'll have to get a copy. I'm glad you like the show." And I'm like, "No, you're not getting the point." So I messaged her and I was like, so anyway, I really do think that you're cute and friendly and funny, and we should talk. I'm a lesbian too, and things and stuff. So hit me up on Facebook so you know that I'm a real person. Because like, you know.
Yeah.
So then she was like, "Oh well, I'm not on Facebook, but hit me up on Skype." And I didn't even know what Skype was, so I went on Facebook and I was like, "Does anyone know what Skype is?" And a friend of mine was like, "Yeah, it's like video conferencing software. I use it. It's okay." And I'm like, "Video conferencing software, okay." So I downloaded it, but I had a laptop at the time, and I was like, "Oh no, my face looks fat." So I actually went and got all these like RPG and old textbooks and stacked them up on the desk to put my laptop on top of that so I get a downward angle,
Oh.
only to find out that she didn't use video anyway. And so the first time we were talking, I was like super nervous, and I was like, "Oh, is it Irish?" And she's like, "No, well, my parents are Scottish." And at that point in time, my sum total knowledge of Scotland and its history came from two movies, Braveheart and Rob Roy.
Oh
And
God,
so
Braveheart, probably the
I
most
said,
factually inaccurate movie ever made.
so I said, "Oh man, that's just really awesome. Well, tell your
Mhm.
parents I hope that someday their homeland is free from the British, because to Americans like English equals British." And she goes, "But like question mark question mark question mark. But the Scottish are British." I was like, hold on, there's someone at the door." And I like went like
Yeah, that's a little bit of a loaded term. A lot of some Scottish people seem to connect British with English too. So no, it means you're from the island of Britain.
says talking. But so I googled the wiki of Scottish history, and then I went from there. And that was just the beginning.
So it's just more of a notice me Irish senpai type of
Yes,
thing.
Grandma noticed me. And then,
um,
dear reader, she married me.
yeah. Um, okay. Now my next question is another one that I have never really asked, and I don't know exactly how to phrase it. I will be as delicate as I can.
Oh
Um,
dear.
um,
Oh no.
no, it's nothing like bad or anything, but um, as you mentioned before, you are a lesbian, and it's just like
As far as
yay,
I'm aware.
yeah, and it's like yay, more power to you. Um, I'm just curious, and without sounding like as somebody completely ignorant to that. Well, see, I don't know if I ever told you, but I recently came out as bisexual.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So, and that took me a long time to come to grips with and everything. So I was just wondering, like, as a woman and as like, when did you? Was it something that you always just knew, or was it something that you gradually had to step into?
Well, it's interesting because I know that a lot of people, it's been their experience that they're like, "Oh, ever since I was a wee kid, I knew." Like, I was always very butch. I was always a tomboy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I told my mom last time we were at like I think it was we were at a wedding. I was like, if you just let me wear a little suit and tie my whole childhood, you could have got me dressed up a lot easier. She's like, "Yeah, that's probably true." But I didn't like start thinking that, "Oh, I want to grow up and marry a woman." That wasn't like a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I do really, really, really want to be best friends with this one girl in eighth grade. I didn't really understand why. She was awesome, and I wanted to be her best friend.
Yeah.
And so that was about when like puberty hit. So I think in my case it was involved with hormones, but I don't think that's been everyone's experience.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a lot of people it's probably been different. But then, it just slowly, I was like, "Oh, great, just my fucking luck." Kind of how high school me looked at it.
Yeah.
But.
Now, are you of the what when it comes to a subject that I don't want to say controversial, but delicate, especially in the states. So I don't. Do you think? Are you of the thought that it's more of nature or nurture or a combination of both?
Well, here's the thing about nature and nurture. and I'm gonna have to put on my psychologist hat right now.
Okay.
Because they're not really separate things.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you do is influenced by the environment. A lot more than a lot of people think. A lot of people think when you're born, you're just spit out and your DNA is set that way for life. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
The environment that you interact with will make minute changes in your DNA, changes that you can pass on. So when people say, oh, is it nature? Oh, is it nurture? There's really not a difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Because the environment is affecting both aspects of it. Now, do I think that people are born gay? Yeah, I certainly do. Do I think somebody could be raised to be gay if they were straight? No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Like, just the same way that you have people whose parents have put them through whatever the ex-gay torture kind of therapy.
The conversion therapy.
Yeah, conversion there. That was like reparation therapy. But like, that's really horrible and it's really traumatic because the person is gay, and no matter how you try to use conditioning or whatever, you're not going to change that. You're just going to make them traumatized.
Exactly.
So,
I've always thought that because I never understood the idea of conversion therapy, because it's like you're forcing these people to lie to themselves and to other people about something that at the end of the day is really nobody's fucking business but their own.
well, the problem is that it came out of classical conditioning and behaviorism.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, conditioning has a lot of really great uses. For
Mm-hmm.
example, like you condition children, when you feel that way, you need to go to the potty.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, everyone gets really happy and mommy gives you a treat. And then you're like, oh, this is pretty nice. And so you're conditioned to do a thing.
Yeah.
That's why, you're careful around heat. You're conditioned, oh, if I touch that, I'll feel pain. So conditioning isn't altogether a bad thing, but it's really only useful for biological imperatives.
Mm-hmm.
We're reasoning creatures. We have a mind. So when you condition someone, like with aversion therapy, you condition someone to maybe feel nauseated every time that they would think about having gay sex. They're still going to think about it anyway. That's what their brain is going to do. You're just traumatizing them.
Yeah. Now, one of the exactly how did the getting off of the heavy shit right now?
Heavy psychology.
Yeah. Not that I don't find this fascinating, but how did the you mentioned earlier that you and Dee Amanda have a podcast for Lesbian Talk. How did that actually become a thing? getting into troublesome territory here, I know.
Once upon a time, a long time ago. Now we worked for I don't want to say that he was mentally ill, because I feel like that would be a cop out. We worked for a really, really horrible individual who said, you're not being creative enough. Be more creative, and I'll pay you a shit ton of money. And we said, well...
Which turned out to be a flat-out lie.
We're both working full-time. I said, well, my friend Gomer has a podcast called Lesbian Talk, and I co-host sometimes. And, Hagen was joking about, oh, we should have one satire called Lesbian Talk, blah, blah, blah. I was like, do a weekly podcast. And so we did, and we just kept doing it. It was supposed to be weekly, but most times it's not always possible. We used to have a music break in the middle, but then that got to be too touchy with copyright and everything.
Yeah.
And talk a lot about Doctor Who. We just talk about like a lot of shit, like the one we recorded last night that's going up tonight. We watched the first episode of Dairy Girls, which is Channel 4 sitcom that's set in
Nicola was telling me about this. Yeah.
So one of the girls on it was a seasonal coworker at my shop.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really weird, but like, just stuff like that. We ended up talking a lot about Ireland and ancestry and stuff, and I'm sure, after we see Black Panther, we'll have a lot to say as well. But it's just like geek stuff that, we don't get a lot of viewers, but we get enough. So,
I myself am looking forward to Black Panther solely like for one, it's a very like an all black cast, or a 99% black cast is like, for a mainstream movie, sadly is like really rare. And two, the guy that plays the titular character, it's from my home state of South Carolina, so I take a bit of pride in that. Yeah.
See, here's the thing about that guy because so we watched Gods of Egypt,
Hmm.
which terrible.
Oh
It was
Lord.
basically Jamie Lannister with his shirt off running around the desert, but the
Yeah.
CGI was pretty. But the only good part about it, when we were doing the vlog, I was saying is, oh, the guy that played the god Thoth, he was great. He was animated. I really liked him. And Hagen says, well, you know him. You've seen him before. That's the guy that plays Black Panther. I'm like, oh, he can act? Because in Civil War, he just kind of stood there like, well, I might be in this film, and I'm not going to act. I'm here under duress. You hear me? I'm not acting. I'm not acting.
It's like,
Angry.
I'm here. I'm angry.
Like, I know that's a character of Black Panther, but like, I was like, wow, your man actually can act.
Yeah, it's
Like,
just like,
gosh,
what's my motivation? You're pissed. That's it. Yeah, but
I gotta tell you what, it looks beautiful though. It really does.
yeah,
I really can't wait to see this.
Gods of Egypt. I always found it really the funniest part was Gerard Butler playing an Egyptian god, but somehow still has a Scottish accent. That's the funniest thing. Oh
It
my
was just
sweet.
all over the place. We did a vlog with, as my sister-in-law joined us, but she didn't want to be on camera for the vlog, so she was kind of just off screen.
Yeah,
But like literally the only good thing about it was that guy and the CGI. Everything else was horrible. Like I like the idea of the gods being like human proportion, but really, really, really big.
yeah,
But so many good ideas, so much horrible execution, really.
yeah. Now, it is no secret that you and Dee Amanda are big Doctor Who fans. That kind of goes without
Why would
saying.
you say that?
um,
What are you talking about?
as somebody that has only seen 3 whole episodes of Doctor Who, and by that I mean I've seen the first 3 episodes of Eccleston, Doctor Number 9.
Okay.
I have a conundrum because I have, like I said before, I have major OCD. So my way of thinking is like I can't start watching, like everybody says, oh, you should start on this doctor or this doctor. It's just like, no, if I'm going to start, I have to start at the beginning and work my way over. The
Really
issue
don't.
the issue is I logistically cannot do that because there's lost episodes, there's all that. So I like, okay, where, like, as somebody that has very passing knowledge about Doctor Who, where would you guys suggest would be a optimal place for me to start watching, like as a newcomer?
Well, first, not to plug, but I would recommend Dee Amanda Hagen's got Classic Guide to Doctor Who. If you, but pretty much it depends on what you want to get out of the Doctor because all the Doctors are different, and like the Fourth Doctor in and of himself is just a whole nother thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like I would see the first 3 Doctors as if you wanted to get really into the classic show, you'll have to go with the fact that there's going to be some missing episodes for the first 2 Doctors.
Yeah.
But 1, 2, and 3 are I would say pretty good in their evolution. The Fourth Doctor, there's a lot of his stuff, and he was very iconic. And that kind of starts the whole 70s. So then you have the fifth and sixth, then you have the Doctor the Eighth. With New Who, like I haven't seen. I've seen all of the Ninth Doctor. I've only seen a few episodes of the 10th Doctor and the 11th Doctor's last season.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if you wanted to do the whole new run, start with 9 and go through 13. But if you wanted to get into the old stuff, I would say, and you want to be palatable, I would say start at 4. What would you say, honey?
You can either start at Eccleston and then go on, or you can start with Smith and go on. I got the feeling Whitaker is going to be another good jumping on point. If you want the classic stuff, either watch 8 to ease yourself into it, or watch start with 1 or 2, 1 and 2, or 3 or 4, or basically with classic, the start of any era is an okay part to jump on. Although particularly 3 is good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's basically a series reboot, soft reboot.
Mm.
And my mom still has a crush on the guy that played the 3rd Doctor, even though he's technically deceased.
And of course, there's the big announcement of like the new Doctor is female, which I've honestly, even though I don't watch the show, I've always thought that this should have happened a long time ago. Um, what is your thought on that? Do you think that that this is the perfect time, or is this something that should have happened like years and years ago?
Well, the thing is, we've had like Romana and the Rani, and we've seen female Time Lords. We've seen a male Time Lord regenerate immediately into a female Time Lord. It's a thing that we know happens. So I don't know why. I do know why it hasn't happened. I mean, I know of no good reason why it could only have happened now. I'm glad that it has.
Mm-hmm.
Jodie Whittaker, from all of the promotional stuff that I've seen, she looks like she's really having a ball with it, even though she's only been in like one promo and one scene so far.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I see no problem with that. Like a lot of people are really, really pissed off. But I mean, here's the thing: if there was no regeneration, then then you have a pretty good point. But since there is, and we've seen Time Lords change at least their outward appearance of gender, then I don't. It's
Yeah.
it's still the Doctor, regardless of anything else.
Yeah. Do you ever do you think that eventually the time will come that we will see a Doctor that is like a male or female, like a person of color, or as like I dare even say like a doctor that is, I don't know how this would necessarily work, but maybe even a doctor who at least the actor is like transgendered or anything like that.
That'd be pretty cool. I mean, someone who I'd never considered for the Doctor until Hagen said something was what's his face? Bashir.
Alexander Siddig.
Alexander Siddig, who played Dr. Bashir in Deep Space Nine. Because he'd have that whole
Oh
kind of like
yeah, yeah.
19th century, like, son of the Raj, kind of like, yes, good boy.
Technically, you have had a person of color play the Doctor. Obscure trivia: Peter Davison is mixed race.
Oh.
Peter Davison's dad is pretty damn dark, and he's Afro-Guyanese.
I know, right? I had no idea. I'm like, Peter Davidson's so white. So different.
But,
Interesting.
Yeah, there should have been a non-white Doctor ages ago. 11 was almost non-white. We don't know who it was, but down.
Oh, okay. And also, do you think that we will ever get all of the lost episodes back, or are those things just kind of lost to the ether? Because I keep hearing about stories about how, like, it's like always in a private collection about how suddenly episodes of this era are suddenly found. Do you think that they will ever get a complete collection of it, or is it just like we'll see it when we see it type of thing?
I think if, like, I know that occasionally they'll be like going through like the back room of, some television channel that was in, part of the Empire, who used to get BBC tin canisters and stuff, and they'll find stuff. But at this point, I think if quote unquote private collectors do still have it, that would be the best way of them being preserved and eventually being released.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty sure that, didn't you tell me that like the film will break down eventually?
Yeah, it will.
That at this point, like anything that they would find would be too degraded.
Not definitely. It depends on how where they're stored. My POV is we may well find another couple of episodes, but we will definitely not get everything. Every episode you get is really fortunate. Don't hold your breath, though.
It's kind of like what they did with Star Wars, like the original trilogy. That if they kept hearing reports about if they hadn't gone back and done the special editions or the restorations when they did, they would not have been able to do it at all, because apparently the film had degraded so much further than they had anticipated, and they said if they hadn't done it like at that moment, then they probably would have never been able to do it. Um, so you mentioned earlier that you're that you're going to uni for psychology. What is it about the field of psychology that really appeals to you?
Well, I kind of didn't have a choice because both my parents are clinical psychologists.
Oh, okay.
So I was kind of like, would hear like clinical language just thrown about the house like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a clinician. I'm a researcher, so I'm going down a research and academic track.
Mm-hmm.
So my BSc is in psychology, so I have a general degree in psychology, but my doctorate is probably going to be in evolutionary psychology.
Oh.
So I like the idea that you'll see people all the time like, oh, the cavemen this and back in the Stone Age that. What people forget is that Homo sapiens, as far back as you can go back to the Bronze Age, you can go back to the Stone Age. Our brains are still the same.
Mm-hmm.
They're still modern brains. So cavemen were, cavemen, Cro-Magnon men were walking around Europe the same way we were, like, making huts out of stone and like thinking, well, that one's not exactly perfect. I'll have to do. Oh, there's my wife's brother. Oh, you fucking. It's kind of the same petty little assholes that we were, and I love that idea.
Mm-hmm.
A
That's
lot of
awesome.
what we study in psychology is attitudes and how they predict different things. So a lot of what I do involves statistics and theory. People are like, "Oh, are you going to analyze me? Are you going to read my mind?" I'm like, "That's not what that is at all."
Yeah. Now,
Like the guy at McDonald's was like, "Oh, so what am I thinking right now?" And I'm like, "I don't know
I'm not a
because I'm
mind.
not psychic."
I'm not a fucking mind reader.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Now I know that when Dee Amanda first came on to like the Tigwatig, um, she was she at first she did not appear to be very well liked when she first did the I think her first video was Faust on there, and people she got not, at least from what I saw, she got not a very warm reception at first, and people
Go
started to
figure. People don't love the evil villain.
yeah, but and I know, sadly, like even when like videos that she does with collabs with like Rap Critic and stuff like that, I mean she still gets um a wee bit of harassment still. And I was wondering, have you been, since with anything that you've done on the internet, have you had the same type of um harassment or just general nastiness from people, and if so, how have you coped with it?
I haven't really had to deal with that. Like the in the beginning, that's the reason why the Omega character had no face.
Mm-hmm.
It was because I'm like, you know what? If I show my face on the internet, I'm gonna get slagged off, in so many 15 kinds of ways. So I'm like, they can't slag me off if I've got no face. But I mean, I've had people who like disagree with me on Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
but there was that really weird guy who was sending rape threats to all the women in Channel Awesome
Oh, lovely.
over Twitter. Who he kept getting suspended and suspended. It's been a while since he's shown his face,
Mm-hmm.
so I know he got a visit from the police last time that happened. So,
Oh, good, good.
but I guess the most is some like I will have like people who on Twitter, like I'll reply to something like that's political. I'm like, yeah, well, let me tell you what.
On a lighter subject, how did you come up with your little lobster sidekick, Giovanni?
This is a pretty obscure story. Okay, so White Wolf, the gaming company, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they do Vampire the Masquerade, and a long, long, long time ago, they had, well, they still do, but they had a live action, a LARP version. And one of the guidebooks was telling you about, how to name your character because you want to pick a name that fits with your character. And they said it's going to look pretty stupid when your punk rolls up and to the prince and introduces themselves as Giovanni Jones. So that became a kind of a joke in my little LARPing friends group. This was back in high school, mind you.
Oh, Lord.
And we had a camp. My friend's father had a camcorder, so we were fooling around with a camcorder and doing stupid crap like kids do. And I had a little sock, and we were like, I'm kind of good at puppetry,
Mm-hmm.
and we had this little sketch, and I had this little sock puppet, and my friends were fooling around, I was improvising, and I said, my name is Giovanni Jones, and I'm a twink. In our parlance, twink was code for cheater.
No,
In our
okay.
that's my goldfish over there. He's also a twink, but he is not a sock. And for some reason, my friends thought that was the most hilarious thing ever. And so that was just this little artifact of high school that was just, around. And I would use the voice occasionally,
Mm-hmm.
but then I don't know, I like lobsters. And so I was like, oh, remember I used to do the Giovanni Jones voice. And so it
Wow.
just became a thing.
Yeah.
I told you it was obscure.
um, if you okay, big question. Do you plan on like going for your master's in psychology, or do you think that you're getting your doctorate is going to be enough for you? Like after this, no more school.
Well, it's interesting because people do it in different ways. Like my mother got her BSc, she got her master's, and then she got her PhD. My dad went right to do his PhD. A
Mhm.
master's is not always required, but it's kind of like when you do a higher degree, it's very 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 like circumspect.
Yeah.
Not circumspect. It's very very focused.
Hmm.
Like some friends from my class, they're doing PWP masters, so
Mm.
they're going specifically into clinical counseling. And then some people are doing a research master's and then going to go on to do the clinical, try to get into the clinical PhD program over at Queen's University Belfast. So it all depends on the person. Will I go back and do a master's in like applied or something? Maybe, but
Just
it'll depend.
just haven't made up your mind at the moment, or
Yeah. Well, also it's like how much do I really want to pay?
yeah.
Like I think maybe I'll wait until I'm an EU citizen and then take the course for like what £2,000 versus like 13.
Yeah. I noticed that I know that when you were moving over there to be with Dee Amanda, which I thought was just adorable, by the way. I remember watching your Twitter about going on about how difficult the process was. Can you talk to us about that a little bit, about the whole immigrating process?
Well, as difficult as the visa was, the whole
Mm-hmm.
like, well, it's difficult. Okay, as long as the process took, I kind of had to have it easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like what I applied for was an educational visa in the UK, and basically, you have to come and you have to prove a lot of things that you have a whole lot of money held aside because the UK really only wants you to come if you have a shit ton of money already. That
Wow.
your course, and then this is about they want at least £9,000, so it's about $12,000. That doesn't count your tuition money.
Mm.
But I mean, I was half self funding, so half of it I was paying for myself, and the other half was federal loan, so that was fine. But I had to prove that I had a certificate in English, that I was fluent in English. Now, fortunately, being a citizen of an English speaking country, that's good enough
Yeah.
usually. Sometimes you have to come in and prove it, but it's just a matter of filing the papers. You have to pay a lot of money, and then you wait, and it's very nerve wracking to wait. But it's even worse for people who are from non-English speaking countries because they're the people with the home office is like, oh no, a scary foreign name. The, like I don't really know how my privilege and disprivilege stacks up, but like I definitely did have privilege in the fact that I was coming from America,
Mm-hmm.
that somebody coming from Asia or South America or Africa or something like that would have gone through a lot more stuff. I just had to pay money, submit a lot of paperwork, and wait. So, you know.
Um. Let's see. All right. Well, I think that would, okay, and I will end this with one final question. Um.
Oh,
I know. Um. Do you have any advice for people that see what you're doing on YouTube and everything and just think that like, oh, that's really fun. I want to try to do that too. What do you have any, especially with the current attitude that YouTube
yeah.
has? What do you have any advice whatsoever for up and coming people?
Well, if you want to do something, like go on and oh my god, sorry,
It's all
my
right.
screensaver kicked in and I thought everything was falling apart. If you want to just go on and do it, like especially people who would watch the more educational stuff. If you're worried about getting into YouTube with how precarious YouTube is, but you really like information, you want to share learning, write essays. Like I'm really, really serious here. Like if a lot of publishers will like if you were trying to get a fiction book published, it's kind of a bit harder because you have to get an agent interested. But a lot of publishers that do nonfiction will have right on their website query with pitch. So if you say, "Oh, I know a lot about this one battle, and I want to write a book about this one battle in, say, the Civil War, and this is my pitch, and this is what I'm going, this is the research I'm going to bring out. Then they're like, oh yeah, yeah, that's great, go for it. There's more than one way to do what you want to do. And I mean, I know a lot of people are like, oh, a blog, that's so odd. There are blogs that I still read.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do, go on and do it. Don't let people tell you, oh, you'll suck at this. Like when I was little, I was told by a teacher, you're really good at English, but you're not really good at maths. But that's not surprising because girls usually aren't. Like, I think she was trying to, like, make me feel
my god!
I am rubbish at maths, though. But, like, that really did kind of put me off maths and thus science in high school when I've been really, really into science and the natural world when I was a kid. So don't let anyone tell you that you can't, because you always find a way.
Fucking A. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. If you've enjoyed this, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And Amanda, Omega Geek, thank you so very much for taking the time out to do this. Greatly appreciated. And to Dee Amanda Hagen in the background, thank you for being here as well.
She's playing Just Cause 3.
Oh, okay. And you guys, everybody, have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.